You might assume medieval people were sexually repressed, hiding behind prudish norms and awkward barriers. But imagine waking up to a world where judges demand intimate medical examinations in court, with certified inspectors scrutinizing your fitness for marriage. Medieval sexuality was anything but private. It was a public spectacle. Bishops owned vast entertainment enterprises. Newlyweds required witnesses to confirm their union, and a single failed examination could strip you of everything. This disturbing truth about medieval sexuality makes today's dating apps seem like mere whispers of intimacy. Between 1100 and 1500 CE, evidence reveals social practices so bizarre and invasive, they would make even the worst reality TV seem tame. What follows is not taught in classrooms. It is the raw, unfiltered reality of how our ancestors transformed intimate moments into public scrutiny that would shock modern audiences. Let's embark on a journey through 7 levels of medieval social insanity, exposing the courtroom horrors of fitness trials, ceremonial marriage verifications by nobles, bishops, morally contradictory entertainment empires, medical prescriptions demanding satisfaction, deadly contraceptive practices, macabre love potions made from corpse ingredients, and the ultimate public humiliation imposed on adulterers. Each revelation will deepen your appreciation for the modern privilege of privacy. You might think medieval people were prudish, hiding their desires behind sheets, but the reality is far more shocking. In medieval times, sexuality was not a private matter at all. It was a public spectacle. Judges demanded intimate medical examinations in court, while certified inspectors verified a man's fitness for marriage. Far from discreet, the intimate lives of individuals were subject to public scrutiny, and marriages required witnesses to validate their consummation. Imagine your most intimate moments being observed and recorded, not just by your spouse, but by nobles, clergy, and officials. From the undressing rituals performed by relatives amid crude jokes and cheers, to the procession to the bridal chamber, where wedding guests hurled objects to encourage fertility, nothing about these events was private. The bed itself was sanctified by priests, and witnesses strategically positioned to hear and see signs of consummation. Royal weddings exemplified this spectacle. For instance, when Margaret of Anjou married King Henry VI in 1445, 23 nobles, clergy, and court officials crowded the bedroom to confirm the marriage was consummated. Similarly, Catherine of Aragon required 6 high-ranking witnesses at her wedding night with Prince Arthur. These public affirmations were not mere formalities. They had profound political and economic implications. Without verifiable consummation, marriages could be annulled, alliances dissolved, dowries reclaimed, and even wars precipitated. This extensive communal involvement in marital intimacy underscores how medieval society regarded sexuality as a public affair deeply entwined with legal, social, and religious concerns. Unlike today's private romantic relationships, medieval intimacy was a matter of state, community, and economics, an invasive reality that would horrify modern sensibilities. Imagine waking up in 1370 York, England, only to find yourself standing in a courthouse, your intimate abilities under intense public scrutiny. This was John Sanderson's reality, as multiple certified examiners meticulously assessed his physical condition before a court scribe recorded every detail. Such ordeals were not isolated incidents, but standard legal procedures across medieval Europe. If a spouse accused you of failing marital duties, you could be subjected to these fitness trials, public performances determining if you were fit to marry. These trials unfolded within specially designed courtroom chambers across Europe, stone rooms with high windows, wooden benches for observers, and a raised platform for the accused. Inspectors, often trained medical practitioners or court-appointed midwives, arrived in official attire, ready to conduct prolonged examinations, sometimes lasting hours. The process was thorough and invasive. Officials observed the subject's responses to various stimulations, recording every reaction, physical condition, and overall marital fitness. The stakes were immense. Failure meant annulment of the marriage, loss of dowry, social disgrace, and economic ruin. Historical records recount torturous cases. Walter Diante endured 3 invasive examinations over a month, failing each despite medical intervention. Pierre de Franville succeeded only after consuming perilous herbal remedies that risked his very life. The psychological anguish rivaled the physical intrusion, with many men fainting or weeping under the courtroom spotlight. Marriage in the medieval world was fundamentally an economic contract, where consummation served as legal proof to validate the union. The Church's stance that procreation was the marriage's primary purpose meant that intimate dysfunction equated to legal failure. Women had recognized rights to marital satisfaction, and a husband's inability to perform was a breach of legal duty. Statistical evidence suggests over 200 fitness trials per decade occurred in cities like London, Paris, and Florence, with less than 30% of accused spouses retaining their marriage after the process. In stark contrast to today's private doctor-patient relationship, medieval justice demanded public exposure of one's most intimate capabilities. The absence of privacy around sexuality was not just a societal norm, but a legal mandate. These fitness trials reveal a world where intimacy was communal, regulated, and mercilessly scrutinized, with men's varied bodies and reputations subjected to courtroom examination. The reality of such invasive procedure shatters modern assumptions about medieval sexual repression, replacing them with a picture of relentless public surveillance and social control. Imagine a royal wedding night in medieval Europe, far removed from the privacy we know today. In 1445, Margaret of Anjou was wed to King Henry VI of England at merely 15 years old. Their wedding night was anything but intimate or private. Instead, it was a public affair involving 23 nobles, clergy members, and court officials packed into the royal bedchamber. These witnesses did not simply wait outside. They surrounded the curtained bed, strategically placed to observe or hear any signs that indicated the union was consummated. The Archbishop of Canterbury stood at the foot of the bed, offering blessings as the young couple struggled to complete their first intimate act under intense scrutiny. This ritual, deemed essential, validated the marriage, which united England and France politically. Without this witness consummation, the alliance had no legal standing. Imagine facing such pressure on the most vulnerable night of your life, with parents, priests, and nobles bearing witness. The ceremonial ordeal began with an undressing ritual filled with uncomfortable public commentary and crude jokes from family and guests. Each piece of clothing removed was met with cheers and lascivious remarks. The bride's mother and aunt would judge her bodily readiness for childbearing, while the groom's male relatives offered body encouragement. Following this came the procession to the bedchamber. The couple was led through corridors lined with intoxicated wedding guests who threw objects, purportedly to enhance fertility, but often to humiliate. Meanwhile, they consumed blessed wine infused with herbal enhancers and ate special foods like oysters and honey cakes, all amid continuous public commentary. Before the consummation could begin, the bed itself was blessed with holy water and prayers for fertility, and the groom's performance were recited. Though curtains were drawn, they were usually thin, allowing witnesses to detect shadows and movement. Some even stayed the entire night to ensure the act was completed successfully, with failure leading immediately to annulment proceedings. Historical examples reveal the harrowing nature of these ceremonies. Catherine of Aragon's wedding to Prince Arthur in 1501 required 6 high-ranking nobles as witnesses, while Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, in 1770, endured a 7-year-long public struggle to consummate their marriage, with witnesses present for repeated attempts. The psychological toll from such invasive rituals, especially on young, inexperienced couples, was unimaginable. Medieval society viewed these practices as necessary due to the political and economic significance of marriage alliances. A consummated union confirmed legitimate heirs, secured peace treaties, and maintained social order. The Church reinforced this by teaching that marriage was incomplete without consummation, and that witnesses prevented disputes over legitimacy and inheritance. Verification extended beyond the wedding night. The following morning, midwives examined the bride for physical proof of consummation and swore legal oaths documenting their findings. These official records, which survive today, contain detailed testimonies describing what was seen and heard, such as bed curtain movements or sounds consistent with vigorous activity. Though such public ceremony seems inconceivable today, it was a crucial aspect of medieval diplomacy and legal structure. Contrary to modern sensibilities that cherish privacy and intimate matters, medieval intimacy was a communal affair, loaded with social, political, and economic significance that demanded open verification to safeguard legitimacy and inheritance. Reflecting on such practices reveals the profound transformation in human history from public intimacy toward the private sexuality we take for granted. While modern weddings may be awkward, at worst, the idea of dozens of officials bearing witness to your wedding night intimacy remains one of the most shocking aspects of medieval life. During the medieval era, bishops preached tirelessly about moral purity and the virtues of chastity, yet behind the scenes, many of them operated vast entertainment enterprises that profited enormously from adult services. This stark contradiction between their public sermons and private business ventures highlights a profound hypocrisy entrenched within the Church's highest ranks. Take, for example, the Bishop of Winchester, who controlled the largest such empire in medieval England. Situated in Southwick, just across the Thames from London, this sprawling network included 18 well-known establishments employing over 1,000 women, euphemistically referred to as the Winchester Geese. Far from hiding these operations, the bishop proudly displayed his coat of arms above the doors, along with official signs and published price lists. The revenues generated from these establishments contributed directly to the funding and upkeep of Winchester Cathedral. Every hymn sung and prayer uttered within its walls was indirectly supported by this lucrative adult industry. These businesses were far from informal brothels. They were purpose-built, bureaucratically managed operations located in areas under the bishop's jurisdiction, such as the Liberty of the Clink. Their architecture featured large windows facing the street where the women displayed themselves, advertising their availability openly. Some establishments, like the renowned Boar's Head, could accommodate more than 100 customers nightly. Others targeted wealthier clients, offering clean, disease-free women certified by the bishop's own physicians at premium prices. The Church meticulously maintained detailed records of these operations. Weekly profit reports reveal earnings equivalent to enormous modern sums. The taxation and licensing systems were highly organized. Women required official permits, paid weekly sin taxes, and even paid extra fees for working on holy days despite bans during Lent that were widely ignored through bribes. Beyond taxation, the Church controlled recruitment, assessing attractiveness and health to place women in particular establishments, and maintaining medical inspections to certify disease-free status. Moreover, the Church provided protection services, with a dedicated guard force to prevent violence and ensure clients paid their debts. The women could even buy retirement funds to support themselves when they could no longer work, though, tragically, Hugh lived long enough to benefit. This system was not unique to Winchester. Similar ecclesiastical entertainment empires existed throughout Europe. In Avignon, under papal control, a complex employed hundreds of women servicing visiting church officials. In the Holy Roman Empire, bishops in cities like Mainz and Strasbourg oversaw multiple such establishments, openly advertising and paying taxes directly to church coffers. Even Spanish cathedrals had entertainment facilities closely connected by secret passageways to clergy quarters, ensuring discreet access. Repeated attempts by church councils to abolish clerical ownership of these businesses consistently failed, largely due to the immense financial importance of their revenues. Councils convened with hundreds of women from the entertainment industry in tow, effectively blocking any reform. The theological justifications were equally perplexing. Figures like Augustine and Thomas Aquinas rationalized such adult services as necessary evils, akin to sewers in a city, providing regulated outlets that prevented worse social transgressions like assault or adultery. Bishops defended these ventures both as critical sources of income for expensive cathedrals, princely lifestyles, and wars, and as tools of social control, regulating who could offer services, under what conditions, and at what prices. They enforced dress codes, segregated workers from respectable women, and channeled male desire into taxable, manageable sectors. This institutionalized hypocrisy, where religious leaders vociferously condemned immorality on Sundays, while profiting from it on Mondays, baffles modern sensibilities. Yet, medieval society accepted this arrangement as normal, exemplifying the inseparability of religious authority, economic pragmatism, and social governance that characterized the era. The Church's role in both preaching purity and running the largest adult entertainment enterprises reveals a disturbing dimension of medieval sexuality, where moral discourse and material interests existed in stark and unembarrassed contradiction. In contrast to assumptions that medieval society suppressed sexual pleasure, medieval medicine recognized the necessity of intimate satisfaction as a medical requirement for conception. According to prevailing medical theories taught in universities and recorded in authoritative texts, a woman could not conceive unless she experienced genuine satisfaction during intercourse. This notion stemmed from the 2C theory, which posited that both partners contributed essential elements to conception, with the female's contribution released only through peak experience. Husbands, therefore, bore a medical obligation to master intimate skills ensuring their wives' satisfaction. Physicians and midwives alike provided detailed guidance, encompassing stimulation techniques, optimal positioning, and the use of warming herbal ointments. The Trotula, a prominent medieval women's medical compendium, included in-depth instruction on methods designed to evoke female pleasure, employing fragrant oils, precise touch, and specific postures aligned with individual constitution types, such as hot or cold, moist or dry natures. Some tools resembled early forms of enhancement devices, crafted from polished materials like ivory or wood. Medical practitioners even recommended environmental factors, such as musical accompaniment with particular rhythms, to facilitate arousal. Midwives often served as intimate coaches, supplying hands-on instruction with illustrated manuscripts and demonstrations. They might oversee practice sessions, advising couples on rhythm, pressure, and positioning in real time. Herbal concoctions, containing ingredients like ground pearls, mandrake root, or warming spices, were commonly used as enhancers to improve sensitivity and increase chances of conception. This clinical approach extended to diagnosis and treatment of intimate dysfunction. Physicians employed examination instruments and rudimentary sensory tests, using feathers or heated probes to assess female responsiveness. Sometimes, devices designed to amplify sound served to confirm arousal. However, this medical acknowledgement of female pleasure created a profound theological paradox. The Church condemned pleasure for its own sake as sinful, yet mandated satisfaction within marriage for procreation. Confessors faced the impossible challenge of navigating between condemning women who enjoyed intimacy excessively and those who did not achieve the requisite satisfaction for conception. Theological debates even addressed the moral status of children conceived with or without female joy, reflecting complicated attitudes towards sexuality and sin. Despite these contradictions, legal records reveal that medieval women had recognized rights to marital satisfaction. Failing to fulfill these obligations constituted grounds for annulment. Husbands neglecting their wifely duties face criticism for violating marriage contracts. Ultimately, medieval medicine's emphasis on intimate satisfaction demonstrates a nuanced understanding of human sexuality. Far from repressing female pleasure entirely, it integrated physiological theories and practical therapies into reproductive health, albeit framed within the era's humoral beliefs and religious strictures. This medical legacy contrasts sharply with later historical periods that often denied or minimized the importance of female sexual response. Medieval contraception was a perilous endeavor, with women frequently risking their varied lives in their attempts to prevent pregnancy. The concoctions and methods used were often hazardous, comprising exotic animal substances, heavy metals, toxic plants, and various organic materials. These were not mere folk remedies passed around by peasants, but appeared in medical texts authored by university-trained physicians. Women would insert dangerous pessaries prior to intimacy and consume potions containing mercury, known to cause organ failure, or lead-based solutions that resulted in permanent nerve damage. The risks were grave, yet the alternative, another pregnancy, with the associated dangers of childbirth or the strain of an additional mouth to feed, often seemed worse. Among the barrier methods, crocodile dung was believed to possess contraceptive properties due to its alkaline nature, a wisdom inherited from Egyptian medical texts dating back to 1850 BC. Though most European women substituted it with waste from horses, cows, or pigs, unwittingly inviting bacterial infections. Mixtures of honey and plant gums, such as acacia, which ferments into acid with contraceptive effects, were soaked into wool or lint to create primitive barriers. However, improper use often led to severe infections and even toxic shock syndrome, resulting in death. See sponges soaked in acidic substances like vinegar, lemon juice, or wine were among the more sophisticated methods, forming a physical and chemical barrier against conception. Similar to modern diaphragms, these were most accessible to Mediterranean women familiar with natural sea sponges, whereas Northern European women resorted to moss, rags, or even bread as absorbent substitutes, all laden with infection risks. Animal membrane barriers made from clean sheep intestines, fish bladders, or pig bladders were available, mostly to the wealthy, serving as early condoms. Despite their functional use, the Catholic Church vehemently condemned these measures as acts defying divine will, threatening users with excommunication. Toxic substances formed another grim chapter in contraceptive history. Mercury-based potions, administered in small doses labeled to cool the womb, often led women to suffer from tremors, tooth loss, and mental decline, while sometimes effectively preventing pregnancy due to poisoning. Lead salts, known as sweet salts, were ingested or applied vaginally, inflicting severe abdominal pain, neurological damage, and even brain impairment. Archaeological findings reveal elevated lead levels in the remains of young women, correlating with these treacherous contraceptive practices. Copper sulfate irrigations, derived from Arab medical texts, cause burning and scarring, while herbal concoctions like pennyroyal tea, rue, Queen Anne's lace, and tansy demanded precise dosing, a narrow margin wherein a slight overdose could prove fatal. Such precarious herbal mixtures were a desperate gamble for women seeking control over their fertility. Magical and ritualistic methods intertwine with medical attempts, with women wearing amulets fashioned from weasel reproductive organs harvested under astrological conditions, or utilizing dried infant hands from unbaptized babies, illustrating the blending of superstition and desperation. Menstrual blood rites persisted, involving the drying and pulverizing of menstrual blood to secretly feed to husbands, with the belief of diminishing their potency, or using menstrual ashes as internal pessaries. Underlying this dangerous mix of methods was a society where contraception was condemned by the church as interference with God's will, and where husbands had legal rights to conjugal access. The burden of preventing pregnancy fell heavily on women, with midwives acting as custodians of contraceptive knowledge and practitioners often persecuted as witches for their expertise. These lethal contraceptive practices reveal the dire circumstances medieval women faced, a choice between risking death or enduring the calamity of repeated pregnancies and childbirth. It stands in stark contrast to modern safe and legal birth control methods, underscoring just how extraordinary such medical privileges are today. During medieval times, the lengths to which women would go for love were both desperate and macabre, involving the use of corpse parts and bodily fluids in their love potions. These concoctions called for ingredients so disturbing they resemble items found in a dark criminal's basement: powdered bones from unbaptized infants, organs from recently executed criminals, bodily fluids collected during intimate encounters, and even brain tissue from doves or powdered human hearts. These were not merely metaphorical or exaggerated tales. Women truly engaged in grave robbing, bribed executioners for access to corpse parts, and gathered their own bodily secretions to create these potent love elixirs. The procurement of such ingredients required meticulous planning. Children's bone marrow, especially from those who had died before baptism, was considered particularly potent. Women would either bribe grave diggers or sneak into cemeteries to harvest fresh bones. The marrow had to be extracted within 3 days of burial using heated needles, then dried, ground finely, and mixed with honey and wine to produce the potion that was secretly administered to their desired targets over several weeks. Menstrual blood was another crucial component, carefully collected and stored in specially marked ceramic vessels. Women dried it into cakes or mixed it fresh into food and wine, sometimes during specific moon phases or days of their cycle, adding a mystical quality to the preparation. The most elaborate recipes combine menstrual blood with other bodily fluids obtained after intimacy, creating potions imbued with the entwined essences of both partners. Hair harvesting was another secretive practice. Women covertly collected strands from their lovers during or immediately after intimate moments, keeping them in lockets or sewing them into garments. Sometimes, the hair was burned with incense, ground into powder, or woven into amulets to be worn close to the skin. In some cases, both partners' hairs were braided together for maximum effect, often collected without the man's knowledge, adding an element of deception. The preparation of corpse organs was a dark art demanding precision. The organs had to come from violently deceased individuals, executed criminals being the preferred source, followed by suicide victims. These organs were slowly dried over low heat, then ground with specific herbs such as vein and mundare. The resulting powder was mixed into food over time, supposedly creating an irresistible attraction. Executioners often developed side businesses selling these rare and valued organs to desperate women. These rituals were governed by strict protocols. Midnight excursions to cemeteries had to coincide with a new moon for binding spells or a full moon for attraction magic. Women recited elaborate Latin incantations, often without comprehension, believing the power lay in the act itself rather than the words. Ingredients had to be combined at crossroads or in churchyards, while the practitioner might be unclothed or wearing the target's clothing to increase magical potency. The timing of collection and preparation, especially under specific moon phases, was believed critical. Any misalignment could render the potion ineffective or even dangerous. Medieval grimoires provided detailed instructions on dosages, considering the target's size, temperament, and resistance. Too little potion would fail to achieve its purpose. Too much could cause madness or death. Women often kept careful records of doses and effects, refining their recipes. Some gained reputations as specialists in love magic, selling their services and potions to others in similar desperate situations. Though the risks were severe, with punishments including excommunication or death, enforcement was inconsistent and often influenced by social standing. Noble women caught using such magic might receive penance or exile, while poorer women faced harsher consequences. Some cities exposed entire networks of love potion makers, revealing sophisticated operations with standardized ingredients and pricing. Remarkably, men who became victims of these potions often reported real physical and psychological effects, feelings of uncontrollable attraction, racing hearts, and inability to focus. Whether caused by actual poisoning, psychological suggestion, or a placebo effect, these potions sometimes succeeded in manipulating emotions and behaviors. These extreme measures of employing corpse ingredients for love potions vividly highlight the brutal socioeconomic realities medieval women faced. Limited options for financial security meant that securing a prosperous marriage was often a matter of survival. In this light, the grim pursuit of love through such sinister means was less madness and more desperate pragmatism, a testament to human resilience and the universal yearning for connection. Public humiliation for adultery. Think that social media shaming is intense. In medieval times, adulterers endured punishments far more severe and physically humiliating than any online backlash today. When caught, couples accused of adultery were subjected to a ritualized public spectacle known as la course, or the run, especially common in southern France. They were stripped naked in the town square, and the woman was forced to hold a rope tied around her lover's waist, quite literally leading him as if on a leash. This ritual was no spontaneous mob justice, but a community-organized punishment with strict procedures. At dawn, church bells would ring to summon the townsfolk, as the whole community prepared for the event. Town criers publicly announced the names of the adulterers, and often revealed salacious details of their misconduct. The guilty pair was then brought to the main square, stripped of their clothing before a gathering crowd armed with whips, rotten vegetables, and chamber pots filled with filth. The harrowing procession would then begin, forcing the pair to run a designated route through the busiest parts of town, past the church, through markets, near gathering spots for women, and by taverns. At intervals, designated stations with strong citizens awaited to administer measured blows. The route often stretched 2 to 3 miles and could last several hours, as the couple was repeatedly stopped for additional humiliations in front of the entire community. This was not a merely punitive act, but a ritual of social cleansing. The community's participation in striking blows was seen as an act of restoring moral balance, a collective purging of sin that had disturbed economic and social order. Family members of the wronged spouse were expected to deliver the most severe punishments, though anyone harboring a grudge might exploit liquors to inflict vengeance, turning the ritual into a release valve for broader social tensions. Court records provide chilling details of the physical toll. For instance, a merchant's wife caught with a young cleric was forced to lead him through a 3-mile run, enduring blows and filth hurled by the crowd. She escaped with her life, but promptly fled town afterward. Her lover, however, suffered a waist injury so severe he died from infection within a week. Even knights were not exempt. One caught with a baker's wife endured such severe injuries that he could no longer ride, ending his military career. Death rates were alarmingly high. Between 30 to 40% of men subjected to liquor succumbed to infections or trauma. Women, while facing severe whipping and crowd violence, generally had better survival odds, but were often banished from the community afterward. Many couples chose suicide over enduring the public agony, while others fled and lived as outcasts. Gender played a significant role in the symbolism and aftermath of the punishment. The woman leading her partner by a rope symbolized an unnatural dominance exerted through sexuality, while the man's degradation reflected how lust had reduced him to a beast-like state. Women were typically expelled from towns after the ordeal, whereas men, if they survived, might be allowed to remain, highlighting deep medieval double standards. The economic and social disruptions caused by adultery were profound. Beyond personal betrayal, adulterous acts threatened inheritance rights, broke business partnerships, and muddled bloodlines, critical concerns in a society where family and economic arrangements were deeply intertwined. The public punishment served to reaffirm social contracts by demonstrating the grave consequences of violating marital vows. Comparison with other regions reveals differing methods, but southern France's rope-based punishments were distinct. In England, the pillory or stocks were more common, while German towns preferred head shaving and tar. The rope leash ritual likely traces back to Roman legal traditions emphasizing physical humiliation. While its effectiveness as a deterrent remains debatable, adultery persisted despite such harsh measures. The liquorous ritual performed vital social functions. It fostered communal bonds through shared participation in justice, relieved communal tensions by providing an outlet for grievance, and reaffirmed societal norms surrounding marriage and fidelity. By the 1500s, such violent punishments gradually softened. Physical runs gave way to symbolic processions. Adulterers might be paraded on donkeys facing backward or forced to wear signs proclaiming their crimes. The brutal rope bindings disappeared first due to high mortality rates and legal complications, but public shaming rituals endured into later eras. Compared to this, modern-day cancel culture seems almost benign. Social media attacks, while emotionally damaging, rarely involve actual physical torment. The medieval world's literal whips and filth-throwing embody a level of communal enforcement of morality we can scarcely imagine today. Yet, the psychological scars of public humiliation likely matched or exceeded those of physical punishment. After witnessing the horrors of fitness trials, ceremonial marriage verifications, church hypocrisy, deadly contraception practices, corpse-driven love potions, and now the brutal public exposure of adultery, it becomes clear that medieval society's approach to intimacy and morality was extraordinarily public, deeply invasive, and often cruel. In contrast, our modern era's emphasis on privacy, medical confidentiality, and personal autonomy feels like a remarkable privilege, one that medieval people could hardly conceive. The medieval public humiliation for adultery reminds us that the privacy and dignity we enjoy today have been hard-won through centuries of social evolution. The unsettling exploration of medieval sexuality exposes a past where intimacy was far from private, a realm dominated by public scrutiny, coercion, and rigid societal control. From courtroom fitness trials and ceremonially witnessed consummations to bishops profiting from adult entertainment, mandated intimate satisfaction, perilous contraceptive practices, macabre love potions, and humiliating public punishments for adultery, medieval life revealed a stark contrast to modern notions of privacy. These once common social rituals highlight that the privacy we now cherish is a remarkable modern achievement. While human desires and social pressures have remained consistent through the ages, the ways societies manage intimacy have transformed dramatically. Ultimately, medieval society's raw, communal engagement with sexuality underscores how deeply intertwined intimacy was with economic, political, religious, and social frameworks, making our contemporary private experiences feel all the more precious. If this deep dive into medieval sexuality opened your eyes, make sure to subscribe for more revealing historical stories that go beyond the textbooks. Like this video if you appreciate the privacy we enjoy today. Drop a comment sharing which medieval fact shocked you the most. Was it the invasive fitness trials, bishops running brothels, or the humiliating adultery punishments? Share this with friends to spread awareness of just how far we've come in personal freedom. Remember, no matter how awkward your romantic moments, at least you're not being paraded naked through town with a rope tied around your waist. History gives us perspective on the value of modern privacy and intimate life.